And we're live. Welcome back to the Left Lane Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Sean. I'm your host, Sean. I've here bringing you with the latest news and drama from this past weekend. And this is probably one of the most, not only the most famous, but one of the most important weekends in NASCAR history this past weekend. So to start off with it, the trucks had a bye week as they get ready to prepare for the championship four in Phoenix. And the first thing on the agenda is the Xfinity series with Ty Gibbs and the law of the drama that has happened. So AJ Allmendinger, who was originally at the time 5 points above the cut line, leaving Miami, he fell off and spun, and that effectively ended his championship hopes. But that's not what I'm going to be here to discuss today. So the drivers that have already been locked into the championship for prior to the Martinsville race were originally Josh Berry and Noah Gragson. Berry and Gragson are both drivers for Dale Jr.'s team, Junior Motorsports. And during the race, Ty Gibbs was up front for most of it, and this hasn't been the first time I've seen someone mathematically lock themselves into the championship four. Last year, I believe it was also Chase Elliott who locked himself in the championship four in points and cuts, but that's the first time I witnessed it in any top echelon of NASCAR. And the main reason why I'm going to get to that in a second is because Ty Gibbs' teammate Brent. There was one more spot left for the championship four, and Brandon Jones, who is or well is no longer going to be Ty Gibbs' teammate. He's going to be moving over to the nine when Gregson moves up the Cup. Brandon Jones led for a lot of the race and in the last sections of it too, but the main issue that people are having right now and why there's pitchforks and torches being raised and approach to Ty Gibbs right now is because on the final lap of the race, as Brandon Jones was leading, it was going to be a similar story with Daniel Hemrick winning the championship for Joe Gibbs as they let him go, first career win. But Brandon Jones already had a couple wins prior to this. Going into turn one on the final lap of the race, Ty Gibbs just straight up dumped Brendan Jones into the outside wall. The back spun out because Gibbs gave him a little shove, and you could clearly see it on the broadcast that it was intentional. The reason why many people, I think pretty much why everyone had a problem and why Ty Gibbs is pretty much he went from being one of the most loved and most greatest praised talents to now he's basically a little mini Satan in a sense. Since this isn't the first time it's happened, because he's had incidents on pit road. I talked about the incident on pit road a couple weeks ago with Ty Dillon, how he almost hit and could have potentially hurt a pit crew member of Chris Buescher's team, and that was the point I gave up, and he was fine for that. But this is a moral reason. I doubt NASCAR is going to enforce anything. They were pretty lax with penalties this weekend. One of those penalties, I thought was going to be brought upon was I believe Austin Hill got into a physical altercation with I think Jed Burton. I'm not sure, but no fines really came for them. I'm sure RCR sat him down, talked to him, but yeah, nothing's gonna come for that. But anyways, the main issue with the whole Ty Gibbs situation was that he was already locked in. He did not need to win the race to get into the championship four. And no, obviously the thing with no penalties and why people can question, oh, but Bubba got penalized and why isn't Ty Gibbs getting penalized? The whole Bubba situation was where it was around halfway through the race. Bubba had already gotten some stage points. And there's a difference between hooking someone into the inside wall at 180 miles an hour halfway through the race with non-playoff drivers and potentially taking out your teammate who was a playoff contender at the time and just straight up shoving your teammate into the outside wall at I think around 60 or 70 miles an hour in a car that's meant to absorb impacts pretty well. Not to mention that in the Cup Series those past couple weeks ago, that your own teammate had previously announced his retirement or the day before because he got concussed in a car that is not able to handle impacts well. And yeah, plenty of people are outraged. Even people who are unbiased in NASCAR said, no, this is totally wrong. Kyle Petty has been the most vocal on a lot of the Toyota issues the past couple of weeks, talking about how Bubba Wallace should be permanently banned or suspended for the rest of the season, talking about how Ty Gibbs really doesn't have any respect anymore, even from his teammates. And I think if Ty Gibbs continues to act this way, he's gonna have a lot of struggle. He's gonna struggle a lot in the Cup Series with people because these are drivers who have basically worked their tails off to get to the top series. These are drivers who have won championships. These are drivers who have fought and battled on the track with Formula One drivers, IndyCar drivers, anybody for that matter. Like for Chase Elliott and Kimi Räikkönen earlier at Watkins Glen this year. And I mentioned earlier, Ty Gibbs has got a lot of growing up to do, like Bubba Wallace, and he's still 20, but it's going to be a long, tough battle if Ty Gibbs does not show any of the guys respect. So, yeah, championship 4 has been set. So the championship 4 is obviously Ty Gibbs, and it's Noah Gragson, Josh Berry, and Justin Allgaier, who makes his, I think his, no, I don't think he made it last year, but yeah, he's in the championship 4 again. So Ty Gibbs is going to have to go up 3 junior motorsports drivers, but I'm sure Dale Jr.'s has money backs as his eyes right now, looking at all the drivers that are in the 4 right now. So, yeah. And the reason why I said at the beginning of the podcast that why this Martinsville race was so important is because this past weekend showed probably two of some of the biggest comeback stories, I'd say, in NASCAR history right now. I mentioned earlier that I had Christopher Bell on my chopping block and how his championship hopes were pretty much dashed after Bubba had gone into him in that right rear suspension problem at Vegas that took him out. But he's made a new name for himself as, I think, NASCAR's new closer, and has taken the title and succeeded from Kevin Harvick being known as the closer. And the biggest comeback comes here because he won the Martinsville race. He won it despite being below the cut line after all the adversity he had to go through. He moved Chase Briscoe out of the way in the last lap. And Briscoe, I think if Briscoe got in, he would have had a shot to win the championship. I think that all they would have needed to do other than that was to just bring the same setup from Phoenix as earlier this year, because he won the Phoenix race at the beginning of this year, and that was his first career one, so it would have been interesting to see him there. But the Christopher Bell story, as one Toyota driver, has become a lot more hated because of his etiquette. Christopher Bell, I think, is one of the most beloved talents in NASCAR, and one of the biggest moments in NASCAR history comes from this weekend, and I'll show you why. You need to see for yourself. Hang on.
Next round from Charlotte, 1 lap to go. Christopher Bell. If he wins the 1 and the 11, fighting for every point right now. Denny Hamlin, 2-point favorite to get in as the championship 4. Bell out of turn 4. He's getting.
Just take a look at the bottom left. Right there. That right there is probably one of the most important NASCAR moments, not just in the century, but in the history. That one move that Chastain made to lock himself into the championship 4, that wall riding, that video game move from NASCAR Thunder 2005, right there, squeaked past Hamlin, got him 1 or 2 extra points, and locked himself into the championship war with Chase Elliott, Logano, and Christopher Bell. That is, I just thought it was going to be an average Martinsville race. I was in the city at the time watching this, but that move right there is one of those like NASCAR Renaissance moments. That is shades of Dale Earnhardt Sr. right there. And and many I'm sorry. And many drivers at the time, some were praising it, others were like, "No, you're purposely destroying your car to get a win." I don't think that NASCAR should be making a rule on this. Like that is a 1 in trillion move right there. I doubt it's going to work any longer. I can see the concern with people saying, "Okay, this is going to cost teams money if they're going to destroy and wreck the car for points in the final lap." And I could see their argument, but I think in the eyes of NASCAR, Ross Chastain's redeemed himself to the people. A guy that it's a similar story with Dale Sr., like a blue collar working class guy, worked his tail off in the lower series, worked his way up to the Cup Series, was with some pretty subpar teams during their careers, and got their first career win with Chevy teams in RCR equipment, in Chevrolet equipment actually, and managed to put something together. And it's been a pretty heartfelt story. Even Denny Hamlin, who he had passed, the same guy that has been fighting him almost the entire season, the guy who has gotten into the most run-ins with them, even said, it was our fault. We didn't put it together at the end. I respect Ross for the move for that. And I was like, oh my gosh, at the end of it, considering I thought that it would have been short track racing, or I would have seen a pretty upset Denny Hamlin. He looked defeated, but that's how every driver would feel at the end of the race. So, yeah, I mentioned last week that the Xfinity Series field has been set, and the Cup Series field the Truck Series field was set last week, but the Xfinity Series, Ty Gibbs, Noah Gragson, Justin Allgaier, Josh Berry, in the Cup Series, Joey Logano, Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott, and Ross Chastain, who pulled a Hail Melon this past weekend to lock himself into the championship four. And a lot more interesting news that's been coming out this week is that KBM on tomorrow night will announce what they will be doing with the Truck Series outside the Phoenix Media Center. In terms of teams, what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, Jimmy Johnson might be coming back to NASCAR next year. He and Richard Petty are finalizing a deal to take over as a part-time owner, and that will include, I think, a charter. No, not a charter. It will include a car that will allow Johnson to run a couple of races part-time in 2023 or 2024. And that was pretty big last week. That just came out of the blue. Yeah, it came out of the blue last week. Yesterday when I was looking, I was like, "What? Wait, Jimmy Johnson? The Jimmy Johnson that said he was going to retire from pretty much all full-time racing is coming back to NASCAR?" I'm pretty excited to see what he's going to be able to do in a Petty car, taking on a sort of a owner-driver RFK role. And yeah, other than that, Justin Allgaier, Noah Gragson will be back for 2023. Bass Pro Shops will stay with Junior Motorsports. I think they'll move up with Noah Gragson, but they'll still run sponsorships in the Xfinity Series. And speaking of, Dale Jr. has ran a couple of one race schedules for the Xfinity Series over the past couple of years since his retirement. But in 2023, he's going to be running 2 Xfinity races, and those haven't been announced yet, but they'll probably be announced in the coming weeks. And on a minor note, Road America has completed their repave, but it's only for the Xfinity Series since Cup will not be racing next year. How do you feel about Call of Duty? Oh, I didn't see that. I haven't played it yet, but I think I've heard people say that it's relatively good, so I'm gonna just wait till Christmas to see how it is, and I'm your biggest fan. Thank you for that. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next week, and I'll be back with the Championship 4, and I'll announce my plans of what I'll do following the conclusion of the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series season. Take care.